Hey YouTube, how's it going? Dustin Smith here with A2K, Allegiance to the King, and today we're going to be talking about the gospel message of the kingdom of God within the book of James, okay? James is one of those books that has been highly practical for many Christians, but what I'm going to show you today is that James understood and taught the word, the gospel message, and specifically the gospel message of the kingdom of God that Jesus himself preached, okay? So just as a review, we've seen in some previous episodes that Jesus would commonly preach the gospel in his parables, okay? And in Matthew 13:19, which is Matthew's version of the parable and the seed and the sower, Jesus likens the sown seed as the word of the kingdom, or the message of the kingdom, or the gospel of the kingdom. So the seed message of the kingdom is something that Jesus taught within the parable of the seed and the sower. And what we're going to see in the book of James today is that James also believes in the seed message of the kingdom of God, the seed gospel of the kingdom of God, and he's going to describe it with similar terms, okay? So let's look in James chapter 1 and verse 18. James 1:18, where we can see this sort of language picked up and utilized for his own argument. James 1:18 says, "In the exercise of his will, he brought us forth by the word of truth, so that we would be a kind of first fruits among his creatures." Okay, James 1:18. Notice there that we were brought forth. We were born again. We were brought forth in some sort of new creation by the word of truth, okay? Now notice here, the word of truth is not a reference to the Bible. The word of truth is a reference to the spoken gospel message, the saving gospel message, and that is the saving message of the kingdom of God, okay? So we have this being born again, this new birth by the word of truth, by the gospel message. Why? So that we might become a kind of first fruits among his creatures, okay? So when I see this sort of language of first fruits being brought forth and the gospel message, the word of truth, that sounds a lot like Jesus' seed message of the kingdom of God. Very clearly here, James seems to be influenced by Jesus' preaching, Jesus' gospel preaching of the kingdom of God, and his seed message of the kingdom of God that we could see from the parable of the sower that we see in the Gospels, okay? And James goes on and talks more about what it means for us to receive this seed message of the kingdom, receive this word of truth. Look down in verse 21, James 1:21. He says, "Therefore, putting aside all filthiness and all that remains of wickedness, in humility receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls." Okay, notice there, it's the word implanted, okay? The implanted word. It sounds again like this theme of the seed message, the seed gospel, Jesus' seed message of the kingdom of God. We are to receive the word implanted, and the word implanted is kind of its own phrase. It's the implanted word, the implanted gospel message. Again, notice there that the word is not a reference to the Bible. The word there is a reference to the gospel message. He just said in verse 18 that it was the word of truth. Now it's just simply the word. It's just a shortened way of describing the word of truth. But this does not mean receive the Bible. The Bible is not something that's implanted. The Bible wasn't completely written at that particular point, okay? This is a reference to the word of truth, the word of the kingdom of God, which is the message of the kingdom of God, which is the gospel message about the kingdom of God. He goes on in verse 22, "But prove yourself doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves." And then he goes on, he talks about that if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, and all the bad things that are used to describe that particular person. Again, a doer of the word is not a doer of the Bible. No, for us, we need to prove ourselves to be doers of the gospel and not merely those who hear it. So hopefully you've been encouraged by this message to see that the word of the kingdom, the message of the kingdom, the seed message of the kingdom shows up in the book of James. It's something that we're to receive as the word implanted, and it's something that's supposed to begin our journey as Christians following God as we are doers of the word, doers of the gospel, and not merely those who simply hear the message of the gospel. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more videos from A2K. My name is Dustin Smith. I'm with Allegiance to the King, and until next time, take care.